Hello, everyone. We're going to get started. At this time, I have muted all of the lines, so as we get to the Q&A portion later on in the call, please feel free to unmute yourself. As always, if you're in the app, you are able to drop your questions or thoughts in the chat, and then we will come back to them at the end. So if you have a question, you don't want to forget it, be sure to drop it in the chat. If you have a comment or anything, the chat is available for that as well. So we'll come back to any open questions or items at the end from anyone. As we get started, welcome here today. For those who are unfamiliar, I'm Devin Jenkins. I work as a Senior Technical Product Manager at GE Healthcare in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I lead our BDPA Tech and Career Talks. Glad to have Tim Webb here with us today. We'll hear from him in a little bit, get more into his story and a little bit about what he does. But first, just for those who may be unfamiliar with the organization, Black Data Processing Associates, BDPA, it's been around since 1975. Focused on teaching youth computer programming skills and serving as a forum for IT professionals, technology professionals to continue to advance and develop in their careers, as well as have access to a network of other professionals in the industry. So just wrapped up a great virtual conference about a month ago. A lot of speakers from all over the world, had a phenomenal time, great content. So I believe the recordings from that will be shared soon, so be on the lookout for that. Head to bdpa2020.com to learn more about that experience, to join BDPA, or just to stay tuned for what's coming here in the near future. So that being said, I want to jump into a brief intro of Tim here, and then we will get going with the conversation. So Tim Webb is a native of Columbia, South Carolina. In 2013, he became a first-generation college graduate from the University of South Carolina, where he majored in integrated information technology. While attending university, he became a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. He is an entrepreneur, an investor, a federal government cybersecurity consultant, and currently resides near Washington, D.C. Once he graduated, he moved to Milwaukee and joined General Electric's Digital Technology Leadership Program, where he found his niche in cybersecurity. He then went on to join GE's Security Risk and Compliance team in Detroit and Richmond. There, he developed his skill set in data loss prevention. After about 5.5 years with GE, he made a change, moved to DC, where he pursued his career in federal cybersecurity. So now he's currently assisting federal government agencies to improve their data security posture. In addition to that, he has launched a number of businesses, one of which is More Than a 9 to 5 LLC, which is a lifestyle brand that focuses on empowering and inspiring young professionals and entrepreneurs like himself. He's also developed a passion for investing in residential and commercial real estate. His goal is to break the generational cycle by teaching financial literacy and creating generational wealth. And on top of all of this, he is a student at Indiana University Bloomington, where he is currently an executive MBA candidate. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Tim into the call. So Tim, if you can unmute yourself, are you there? Let me see, I may need to unmute myself. One moment here. What's that name? Let's see here. I'm going to unmute everyone and ask that everyone mute themselves back. All right, Tim, are you there? I think we had lost him and he got back in. All right, Tim, looks like you're back in now.
Hey, Devin, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Yep, I dropped and joined back in.
Okay. All right, I'm going to mute everyone just so we don't have any mishaps, and then I'm going to let you unmute yourself again. So one moment here. All right, now you can unmute Tim. Let's see, how about now?
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yep, there we go.
Perfect.
All right, so glad to have you with us this morning. Looking forward to hearing from you. So we just went through a brief, intro, went over your bio. But when we have these types of conversations with everything that's going on this year, I always like to kind of level set and just check on the person first. So just tell us how you doing, man.
I'm doing good, man, and I really appreciate the intro and also the opportunity. So big thank you to you and also BDPA for having me.
No problem, no problem. So just kind of building off of that, there's been a lot going on this year. We have the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of racial, social justice activity happening. We just had the Breonna Taylor verdict this week. So with everything that's going on this year that has made the year challenging, I wonder, have you managed to learn anything about yourself or managed to find any unique opportunities amidst everything that's been going on this year?
Yeah, no, I think first and most importantly, man, with all of the social injustice, like that's very important, and even with Deloitte and the federal government space, me and a group of others have pushed the envelope in regards to those things being addressed within, the firm. So we've definitely seen sort of changes occur as far as communication and things of that sort, because as we all know, it's very frustrating, right? So you have all of these things going on around you, but you're expected to come in and perform as if nothing's happened. So I think it's very important that we all continue to push the envelope with these things being addressed in our companies and corporations. But outside of that, the firm is just one of the small pieces sort of to my day to day. This with the COVID and stuff going on has awarded me an opportunity to sort of expand and seek new opportunities. So you spoke a lot to real estate and other endeavors that I've worked to create. So I've really been working towards building out my real estate portfolio during this time. Cheaper real estate, so that's always good. And also learning different, tools and traits as well. So started a shipping company with some gentlemen, young African Americans that also work to create my lifestyle brand as well. So a lot of different things moving and kind of up in the air, juggling a lot of different opportunities. But I think it's definitely important too to kind of stay alert to sort of what's going on around us as well.
So that's a good segue into where I wanted to take us next as we look into your professional journey. So you just told us you work with Deloitte, and you've been pushing the envelope there around communication and action around social injustice, and you touched on, you building your real estate portfolio, you've started a shipping company, you have your lifestyle brand. So I guess go a little bit deeper into what you do and give us the journey to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. So I'm actually not too far removed from BDPA in itself. So being awarded the opportunity to work with GE during the time, Devin, where we've crossed paths in the technology leadership program, I actually kind of led the GE relationship with BDPA for Milwaukee. So I think opportunities like that have awarded me to sort of be in the position I'm in today, right? So I worked with GE, as you mentioned, for 5.5 years, developed my niche in cyber to now where I now support the federal government and their cyber infrastructure for one of our agencies in Washington, D.C. But, I think a lot of times in situations as such, people have sort of this entrepreneur spirit to where they feel as if it's one or the other, right? Either I will have to be an entrepreneur 100% or I'm tied to my 9 to 5 100%. So the lifestyle brand, more than a 9 to 5, came about as far as bridging the gap between the two. I know plenty of 9 to 5ers like myself who have that itch to be an entrepreneur. And I wanted to sort of empower individuals like myself that you can ultimately work your 9 to 5 job in addition to chasing your entrepreneur spirits as well. So I'm very excited about the brand. It's been picking up a lot of headway. And outside of that, drop your shipping. As I sort of kind of created my own drop shipping method through the lifestyle brand, I definitely thought it was a great opportunity to sort of create the opportunity for other individuals who own products or are looking to create their own lifestyle brand and apparel as well, of bridging that gap, right? And also, in addition to that, I've sort of picked up a lot of information and soaked up a lot of information as it pertains to real estate, and I started seeing a lot of young individuals like myself sort of making these things happen, and I knew it was something that I was able to, learn as much as possible and kind of re-implement myself. So I think honestly, my journey as it relates to, University of South Carolina and getting out of my comfort zone and moving to Milwaukee where, it's negative degree weather, and to Detroit and Richmond and to now outside of DC has sort of expanded my mind as I've been able to see different things in that sort of time frame.
That's quite the story, and I thought it was interesting how you even reckoned back to your time leading the BDPA relationship, and how that almost served as a launching pad for expanding certain relationships in your network and kind of open their eyes to some of the things you've been able to do. So building off of that, at what point did you realize you wanted more than the standard corporate career? You just talked about more than a 9 to 5 and how this lifestyle brand is all around understanding that you can do both and do both well. So for you, at what point did you realize you wanted to do both? When did you want to do more than have just the standard corporate career? How were you able to launch those efforts, and how did you manage that transition?
Yeah, great question. So I think I've always had it within me without even sort of realizing or noticing, right? So as you mentioned, I'm the first to graduate college from my immediate family, and while attending the University of South Carolina, I made it my sort of goal and objective to say, by the time I graduate, I want to have 5 internships. And I met that goal, and I worked at a lot of big companies, BMW, IBM, just to name a few. And I think while in that sort of process or time frame, I started sort of being an entrepreneur on a smaller scale. And everyone that attended universities or college knows that there's some sort of a form of event, right? I think anything with entrepreneurship is finding sort of a gap that needs to be filled. And I think in my sort of college days at the University of South Carolina, there was nothing really catered towards African Americans as far as events. As you know, it's a predominantly white institute. So me and my chapter brother filled that gap by starting sort of hosting events throughout our undergraduate sort of time frame. And that in itself sort of kicked off my entrepreneur sort of spirits, which carried over into my professional career of continuing to fill gaps of opportunities of things that need to be filled as we speak to sort of, drop your shipping and shipping products for African American businesses, or more than a 9 to 5 of bridging the gap and empowering people to not only, look towards their 9 to 5, but find additional sources of income. So I think I've always had it in me, but I think, the university kind of brought it out of me during that time frame of just sort of manifesting um, things that I pretty much wanted to achieve and sort of tackling those things. And I think there's a continuation of that, of still doing that today, ultimately, helps me strive to get to things that I could only imagine. So I think that pretty much answers the question.
No, it definitely makes sense. You sparked something in my mind when you said entrepreneurship must fill gaps. I guess what tips or strategies would you have for people who may be looking to start their own entrepreneurial journey, or even in your professional role? I think it's important to fill gaps to stay relevant. I guess what tips or strategies do you have to someone on how to identify those gaps?
So I think the biggest thing, right, is really brainstorming and thinking of what is a need that needs to be filled and acting on that need. To be quite honest, with the lifestyle brand, I sat on it for months of sort of not being sure if I wanted to sort of do it, and just kind of let my mind kind of set me back from ultimately moving forward with it. And the best advice I can give is that if you have sort of an ideal in your mind and you know that it's a need to be filled, I just say jump and act on it, because you never know what you have in mind to produce could impact other people. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen sort of as I proceeded and moved forward with not only the lifestyle brand or the drop-ship shipping, is that the amount of feedback of people that are just simply empowered or inspired by the movement. So I think one of the things I see is on social media is that a lot of us are sitting on $1 million ideals. We just have to get it out of our brains. So I think that's the best advice I can give you. I had a young lady reach out and say, hey, how did you, how did the brand get so successful in a short amount of time? And my advice to her was, I simply just started it. I just put it out there. We oftentimes want to perfect things, but any business is about scaling, of putting a product out there and scaling the business to kind of get it to a place where you want it to be. It's not going to be perfect when you sort of initiate these things. Any business is about scaling. So I think that's very important, and honestly the best advice that I can give.
I think that's awesome advice. Getting started. I've recently been saying there's something catalytic in getting started. So I think that's a great advice to offer to someone looking to identify gaps to fill and kind of acting on faith over fear. So
Right.
that brings me to a thought. You're doing quite a lot. How are you able to balance the demands of your full-time corporate role as well as your multiple entrepreneurial endeavors?
It's definitely tough, to be quite honest. But I think honestly, the support system that I have, like I would be lying if I said more than a 9 to 5 was simply myself. But I think things are all about being strategic, right? It's all about being smart in how you work, right? Like they always say, work smart, not hard. And even more than a 9 to 5, the lifestyle brand, right? Like as far as the content, I own that on a day to day, but that's sort of repetitive on a daily basis. But as far as the model of shipping, I actually found a graduate student at the University of South Carolina, African American, who does sort of apparel on the day-to-day basis. It's like that's sort of his niche. And we sort of came to a business agreement of he sort of prints, bags, ships, everything directly to my customers, and I pretty much, manage the orders that come in. I see them, but he is sort of the logistics behind making that happen, right? And when we speak to real estate, being that I have been able to sort of create a portfolio of 23 units, there is no way I can sort of communicate with all of these people on a day-to-day basis, right? So, I've created a property management LLC that the tenants are not aware of, right? So I have a purchase LLC and a property management LLC, which is the face of the units that my mother actually manages, right? So my tenants don't even know who I am; they just simply know my mother as far as the management company. So, like I said, it's all about being strategic. So the support system that I have allows me to sort of successfully perform in my 9 to 5, but also kind of keep tabs on my entrepreneur journey as well. And I'm a huge sort of fan to the late Nipsey Hussle as far as how strategic he was, and the motto of all money in as far as keeping money in our community. And I just think that's how I've learned to operate sort of my business model and structure as well.
That's good. The importance of a strong support system to having a successful strategy around balancing things out. I like how you acknowledge that in doing multiple things doesn't mean you do everything. It's important to find people who have those niches who can be this piece to the puzzle to make one big pretty picture. So I love the way you laid that out. And that was my takeaway from that. A strong support system is imperative to a successful strategy. So I thought that was good. I want to shift gears a little bit. As this is BDPA, we are a technology-focused organization. What role does technology and your background as a technologist play in the success of your personal endeavors?
Oh, a huge role. I think everything that sort of from a entrepreneur sort of journey standpoint all ties into technology, right? So everything as far as my website to my sort of logistics platform for shipping, to how I manage my electronic portal for collecting monthly rent from my tenants. I think technology is definitely a way of the future, and it's never going anywhere. So anyone that touches or taps into the technology field will have job security for pretty much forever, right? Especially when we speak to cyber. Everyone needs security for their, crown jewels or IP, which is a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis for the agency that I support. So I think, honestly, if I wasn't tech savvy, I would honestly not be able to produce and perform, not only my day-to-day, but sort of my businesses as well, because that really drives a lot of sort of revenue that I'm able to obtain through, working on additional endeavors. So technology plays a huge part in it, to answer your question.
And I guess kind of building off that, are there any emerging technologies you think both corporate professionals and entrepreneurs should be well versed in as we look, to the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence is definitely a wave of the future, right? And let me just go back to sort of someone who may not be in the corporate America sort of field, right? But was so sort of educated and advanced from the environment that they came from, right? And I speak once again to Nipsey Hussle as far as how he, and you'll notice a lot of what I do kind of mimics a lot of what I picked up from just soaking up knowledge from this individual. But let's say the marathon store, which I'm pretty sure a lot of people are familiar with. When you walked into that store, it wasn't only merchandise or apparel. It had artificial intelligence built in to where you could take your phone and put it on a QR code or something, and it would pop up unreleased music that was not on your typical iTunes, Spotify, etc., or visuals, music videos. And I mean, this was someone who came from sort of like the streets of Compton, that had that mindset of seeing it early on that AI was sort of the future of technology. So I definitely think artificial intelligence is definitely going to be a huge wave and huge impact of anything technology-wise in the future.
That's a great parallel with the AI Nipsey Hussle, who's been a big figure, in the culture over the last few years. Untimely loss for sure, but was doing so much to advance, things for his people on the business side and musically. So I love that parallel there. I want to transition to just a last couple of questions before we open it up to the audience here to ask things that may be on their mind. But the first one, I would say, what do you say to the person who's struggling with making the jump into pursuing their personal ideas?
I would say, and I think everyone's different, right? Like everyone has a sort of different goal or sort of different sort of journey that they're chasing. And I can only speak to sort of someone who can relate to my journey, right? And I think mine is that, either you sort of, chase and work for your own ideals, whether you pass or fail, right? At the end of the day, you can stop and say, I took a chance on something that could ultimately change my life, and not only my life, but the generations to come after me. And I think that's the biggest thing for me on my journey is that, right now I'm using my 9 to 5 to fund my investments, right? So I'm working towards someone else's dream right now on a daily basis. But I'm being strategic in that approach of using that to fund investments that will put me in a position to where I don't necessarily have to work for anyone else's dream. I'm able to then build my empire for myself that will create ultimately more than what I did for someone else, and then I will be able to hand that down to the next generation. So the mindset that I have is all strategic, right? As I stated, is if I don't pause or if I don't stop to do something that could potentially help myself and remove me from building someone else's dreams, then that's what I'll continue to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. When we speak entrepreneurship, it's not for everyone. Like there's people that strive and are extremely successful in their careers in corporate America, and I don't want to downplay that at all. But I can only speak for myself as far as how I want to, build something that I own and that my family owns, and that transitions into generation after generation after generation. So, if people are along those lines and have that mindset, then I think ultimately the best thing to do is just take the chance. If you put 100% in, at the end of the day, you can only pass or fail. And if you fail, scale and figure out how you can go back to market and try it again. So that's the best advice that I can give people is you just have to take the chance or the opportunity when it presents itself.
And along those lines, are there any resources that you can recommend to someone who's considering entering entrepreneurship or either the corporate world or both, like you?
Yeah. So I'm very big on. So what I'll say to that is that I pretty much alter and put myself in positions to soak up knowledge or be around people, or social media is a huge wave of following people that are ultimately already achieving what I'm trying to achieve. So I think that's the biggest source in itself. One thing I will say is that if anyone is looking to start their real estate journey or purchase investment properties, I actually just released a ebook and audio book on how to get started. So a lot of, I'm actually working on building a lot of sort of content and courses as it relates to investing in the stock market and also real estate through morethan9to5.com and at morethan9to5 on social media. So I'm basically trying to build a repository for people to sort of create a entrepreneur academy where people can come in and have a different source of videos of sort that they can soak up knowledge and pass along to their friends. So stay tuned for that and definitely tap in with that as well.
So I heard you say social media is one of the largest resources that we have right now, using that strategically so you can follow people who are already doing what you want to do. And then you say even personally, you're starting to build up content for people looking to get into real estate. You just released an ebook. We'll share that link later. And working on building out a repository of content for people to do that. And I would imagine that there's similar things out there, and probably just some quick Google searches will land you in certain places based on where your interests lie.
Exactly.
So I think that ties into my last question. You kind of just touched on building out this repository, but you're a young black man, you just hit 30, you're doing well in a number of different arenas. What does the future hold for Tim Webb?
Oh man, so I think the future definitely holds a lot more endeavors, right? So I'm one of those people that can't necessarily focus on one thing. Like, that's not how my mind operates. So the future definitely holds sort of Tim Webb enterprise, to where I have a variety of different businesses. One thing that I actually was working on maybe a year or so ago, which I definitely want to get back into, is sort of creating a minority firm of consultants that are able to sort of address a lot of the technology needs that we have today. One of the biggest things that kind of caught my attention this week was Wells Fargo CEO stated that, to be honest, there's not enough black talent accessible in their recruiting efforts, right? Which is an absolute lie, right? The world thrives off of black creativity. If there was no black creators, a lot of what we see today would not be possible. So I want to sort of create an opportunity, and this is a page you can also follow, Hidden Talent Agency, to where we're able to create a minority firm to showcase the unlimited amount of black talent. So I think that's going to be one of the next things that I sort of work on and focus on, not only within the next few years, but approaching fairly soon. Like I typically tell people the question of where do you see yourself from 5 years from now or so is not really one of my favorite questions, because we sit on so much talent and so much information that the things that we have in our mind can be acted on within the next weeks or months or year, right? So, to answer that question, fairly soon I'll be jumping on a lot of different things.
Well, thank you, Tim. That wraps up the questions that I have for you. We do have one question from Charissa in the chat. And if you want to, you can come off of mute and ask it yourself. Otherwise, I'll ask it for you. I'll give you a moment just to see if I'm able to hear you. Okay, so I'll go ahead and ask her a question. This goes back to drop your shipping. So she was asking what type of shipping business did you start, and how did you get that business started?
Yeah, so, as I mentioned with drop your shipping, so basically what it is that from an apparel standpoint, right, so basically what we're doing is removing sort of any line of work from yourself and taking on everything. So as an order comes in from, let's say, your e-commerce platform, we will see the order. We will create the product. We will bag it. We'll ship it out directly to your customer, to where you're completely hands off. And not only as we focus on apparel, but if you already have a product in inventory that you're housing, let's say at your house or storage, you can ship your inventory to us, and we will manage all of your shipping as orders come in. So we're basically removing you out of the equation, to where you get X amount of time back to your day-to-day, and we're doing all of the legwork for you. So that's pretty much how it came about. And we sort of created this model through my own lifestyle brand and apparel, and definitely saw the need for other individuals who were doing a lot of the legwork themselves, to sort of remove that from them and take on that through our business model.
Okay.
I hope that answered the question.
Okay, Teresa. Yep, she says thank you. So we have another comment in here. I don't think it's more so a question, but I will call out. This is from Ashaki Brown. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. But she said, thank you for speaking to the statement of the Wells Fargo CEO. His statement is a testament that there are organizations which do not actively have a recruitment program that reaches into a diversified workforce. So she wanted to thank you for sharing your comments around that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely think that, you know, that was really sort of a slap in the face as far as many Black creatives as I know and sort of follow, and things of that sort. So I don't know where this guy is searching, but I think ultimately it's an excuse. So most definitely.
Okay, in case people are having trouble coming off of mute, I'm going to unmute the lines in case anyone wants to ask a question. So I'm going to unmute the lines, and if you don't have anything to say, just please mute yourself again. Okay, all the lines are unmuted, and it sounds like someone has a question.
Yes, so my name is Mustafa. I was just asking, what did you do to figure out different marketing and advertising strategies?
Great question. So, I think honestly, so let me just give quick insight. I think one of the biggest things, for me from a marketing standpoint, is finding sort of content that is, that people can adapt to and relate to is the biggest thing. I've noticed that when I put something out that is relatable, it receives a lot more feedback and traction, and traffic to sort of my page and the post, in addition to sort of, you know, hashtagging, as well. And, you know, I'll be the first to say on this call, I think, you know, a lot of the media coverage that has come from CNN or the Shade Room was very much strategic, right? So when the post kind of blew up, that post was originated by myself, and I don't think people put two and two together of I created the media post on More Than a 9 to 5, which is my personal page, and with the hashtags and things of that sort, it sort of caught wind and picked up itself, to where, you know, another thing is if people follow the Shade Room, I don't, but I know that on the post there is a sort of author of the articles that put out the post of the different articles. So being strategic and just thinking, how could I get this on the Shade Room? I reached out to one of the authors and just sent it to all of the people that I could find, and someone responded of wanting to pick up the story. So I think those are just like the small tips that I can give of just being strategic in your strategy, and putting out content that's relatable to people, that they can definitely connect with. So, you know, I've been doing that personally, and it's worked for me. So I definitely hope that can, you know, relate and work with you as well.
Thank you.
Tim, this is Ashaki Brown. I have another question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So you had mentioned that one of your future goals is essentially executing on building a consulting agency that focuses on cybersecurity. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, so not necessarily focused on cyber, but just technology as a whole. So, I look at Deloitte, right, and I look at the different opportunities and RFPs that are awarded to the firm, right, of creating that and scaling that to being minority focused. I have a frat brother of mine who has his own consulting firm in DC and is like small business of the year back to back. And as a minority, I want to kind of tap into that for sort of a millennial age group, right? So where we can recreate that, because I see the amount of African American talent at the firm today, and wanting to recreate that on a scale to where it's minority driven, to jump in and take on some of these RFPs, and being awarded some of these contracts. But that's just more background. But I didn't want to interrupt you from your question.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's very helpful, Tim, because, and the reason I asked the question is, and whether it was excuse me, specific to cybersecurity, because one of the things that I've been noting in that industry is that it appears to be 0% unemployment, and there's constant demand for people to not only go into the cybersecurity field, but to have certain specialties. And the other thing that I noticed that you don't see a lot of people of color in that field, and even less so women in that field. And, if you're starting an organization or a company where it's going to look at building up that diversified workforce, that, that's absolutely something that the industry needs, because they don't see it at all at this point.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think even from my current account that I'm on and the agency that I support, I don't see a lot of people that ultimately look like me, especially on my team that I lead. Right? There's one other individual. So this goes back to finding that gap and filling sort of that need. So I definitely plan to sort of buckle down and make this happen at some point in the near future.
Wonderful. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
And with that, just to close it out, there is an organization that my company, an affinity organization that my company works with young individuals, either in college or coming out of college, that actually puts them on a path for security and other industries and technology that is quite a bit in demand. And I'm happy to post the name of that organization in the chat, because as you progress along on your journey, that may be an organization that you can tap into as well.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. That will definitely be helpful. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And while we let someone else get ready to ask a question, and I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Nika, Jimmy. I hope I pronounced that right. I apologize if I didn't. But she dropped a message in the chat saying, "Thank you, Tim. I would like to contact you and talk to you more on real estate, if it is okay." Is there a preferred way you have for someone to contact you?
Yeah, no, most definitely. If you can send the email, and I'll give everyone the email address, is info@morethananine-to-5.com. Any questions that anyone has, definitely feel free to reach out, and I'll definitely get everyone's questions answered.
Okay, and I just dropped that email address in the chat. Okay, are there any other questions on the line? Feel free to unmute yourself. If you have any questions or comments for Tim. Or you can put them in the chat if you don't wish to ask them yourself. Okay, it's looking pretty quiet now. So, Tim, any last thoughts or comments for you before we wrap up?
Like I said, I'll just kind of recite what I stated earlier, right? I think, you know, Black is definitely creative. Black is definitely talented. I think if I can do anything to encourage anyone is, I'll recite again and say a lot of us are sitting on $1 million ideals that are simply in our brain. So I just encourage anyone that has been sort of sitting on something or hesitant. Now is the time to definitely act on that. I definitely appreciate the opportunity. Any questions that anyone has, definitely feel free to reach out at info@morethan9to5. Please follow us on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and I definitely look forward to creating some new form relationships. And I definitely appreciate BDPA for the opportunity.
Okay, and I do see something in the chat. Oh, Ashaki dropped that organization, which was Step It Up America. That was the organization with young technology talent.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, so if you're in the app, you see on the screen here, just put a few links to Tim's businesses that he spoke on today, as well as his LinkedIn. Please feel free to connect with Tim on LinkedIn. He's active on there, but you see here we have More Than a 9 to 5, the lifestyle brand, morethan9to5.com. We have Drop Your Shipping, which is a jot form link there. And we have the Buy Back the Block, a guide to building your real estate portfolio ebook, and the audiobook is available as well. You can get those on the More Than a 9 to 5 website as well under the ebook section. And as I just stated, feel free to connect with Tim on LinkedIn. So Tim, again, thank you for sharing your story with us today. We wanted to make sure that we highlighted you as a young Black man who's out here doing this thing in both the corporate world and the entrepreneurial sector. I know many of us are either living that life or have plans to start living it. And I think it's important to hear from real examples of those who are doing that. So thank you for coming and sharing with us today. And I want to thank everyone who dialed in today to hear Tim's story. The recording will be available afterwards on our website. So if you want to come back to it or share it with others, please feel free to do so at bdpa.org/BDPA Tech Career Talks. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. Have a great, blessed weekend. Be safe. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you.